So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Kent with Bent 83. I'm Dapper Dinosaur. I'm not Kent or Bent, but someone here is Bent. Who's that?
I'm Bent.
Hi, Bent.
Hello.
So, in case any of you guys aren't aware of what this is a thing where we watch Kent Hovind videos, and then we debunk them in real time with a drinking game. Now, the thing about the drinking game is that we encourage you to play responsibly. If you're going to play at all, feel free to play with things other than alcoholic beverages. You can do water, tea, whatever you want. I've known some people who do like vape pens.
Tea.
And
water.
And if you do decide to drink, please do so responsibly. Know your own limits. Don't get drunk and then go operate heavy machinery or drive a car, because the Dapper Dino channel, 1, supports responsible drinking, and 2, accepts no liability or responsibility for any death, injury, dismemberment, grievous bodily harm, or damage to property for yourself or others. So, yeah,
in any way, shape, or form whatsoever.
This is an at-your-own-risk kind of thing. It's kind of like entering Dinosaur Adventureland. This is your warning. You're here at your own risk.
Probably not as dangerous, but...
Well, fewer people have died as a result of Kent with Bent than has died as a result directly of Dinosaur Adventureland. Because as far as I know, it's 0 and 1. So, Kent officially has a body count, which, yeah. Anyway, so let's see.
Yes, prune juice, a warrior's drink, David Lass. That's correct.
Prune juice is, in fact, a warrior's. Also, fun fact, guys, it looks like we're not going to have Eric with Erica this next month, because Erica has some very important personal stuff going on that I don't know if it's public yet, but probably won't be able to be here. So, sorry, what it looks like we're going to do is have an extra Kent with Bent, but I think Maddie from Science Side Up is going to come on. So that'll be fun, and also, it'll be my birthday. So we'll have a Kent with Bent with Maddie on my birthday. It'll be a lot of fun, I hope. So that'll...
Wow.
Yeah, big
Well, you're going to be 150 million and 4?
Something like that, yeah. It's hard to keep track of the individual years once you get past like 30 million. But anyway, let's talk about the rules for the game. So the rules for the game are as follows. 1, we take a drink whenever Ken Hovind, so stupid, just kind of have to, prevent our brains from melting. 2, we take a drink whenever he gets something actually factually correct without it just being a quotation from someone else. Okay. We also take a drink anytime Kent Hovind tells a joke that doesn't land, anytime he mentions the leaders or activities of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, especially during the 1930s and 40s. We'll take a drink anytime he tells a story that didn't happen. Let's see. We will also take a drink anytime any of my channel members bothers to super chat with a Godzilla, Mothra, or Ghidorah emoji, because that's connected to the fact that we also take a drink whenever Godzilla or Mothra stop by audibly, which will happen maybe at random intervals. It's sort of a random drink trigger.
It'll happen soon.
Also, oh, there it is.
That happens soon.
Drink for Godzilla. Okay, also, anyone who super chats anything to the effect that AIG are a bunch of dicks or a bag of dicks or something like that, also get us a drink, because AIG likes to copyright claim anything using their content. I've fallen prey to it. Vice Rhino has, Paul from Paulogia has, Erica has, Godless Engineer has. Basically, if anyone has ever made a response video, anything from AIG, it's been copyright claimed. I can almost guarantee it. I think everything I've ever uploaded from them has been copyright claimed at some point. So, and you could say, oh, but it's probably just some copyright management firm that they've hired. Yeah, they should hire a better one.
Yeah, it could be.
The buck stops at them.
Don't hire a firm that fraudulently does copyright claims on fair use.
So with that, I think it's time.
Did you get the predictions? Did you say that one? You went through a couple pretty quickly.
Oh, I didn't get predictions. You're right. So if one of us makes a prediction about what's coming next,
it'll be you, Dapper.
You have the option. It's there.
I just get him wrong all the time.
Well, and we get the prediction right, where it's unclear where Kent is going to go with his argument. Take a drink. So, I think it's mostly just that I've seen so goddamn much of his content that, like,
I just
I know where he's likely to
believe
go.
that there's some good in everyone, I guess, and then there ends up not being any.
We're talking about Kent Hovind, not Darth Vader.
I know. Not everyone has redeemable qualities, like Darth Vader.
Right.
Right before he dies.
Uselessly, because Palpatine just comes back anyway. Thanks, Disney. That really, really, really made Return of the Jedi so much more meaningful to know that Vader sacrificed his life for nothing.
Well, if the writers of the new stuff aren't going to watch or care about the old stuff, then what do you expect?
Well, okay, we can't turn this into just a hate fest on the sequel trilogy.
I just want them to know that there exists previous work in this universe. I don't care if they even read about it. I just want them to be aware that it exists.
That would be nice.
All right. Hi, Bob Dobb. How are you? Thank you, Bob. David P. Numbers.
All right, let's do this. We've only got 7 minutes left on this, but I have the next one downloaded in case we get to the end of it.
Bent. He said Ben instead of Bent.
Yeah, who's Ben?
Yeah, should I call you your real name, Bobbert Nobbert? What if everyone knew that? Oops.
All right, here we go.
Short period comets are flying around through space.
That's true. We'll take a drink. Good job, Kent. You started strong.
These comets are continually losing material. Well, you can't just keep losing. Pretty soon it's gone.
Well, again, like we talked about with the heat with Jupiter last time, it depends on how fast you're losing and how much you started with. But it is true, the short period comets don't typically last tens of millions or hundreds of millions of years. They're more of a, tens of thousands kind of phenomenon.
It's like your checkbook, if your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will be your downfall. You cannot just...
Was that a joke?
Well, no one's laughing, so probably...
I'll take a drink for a joke that did that.
Just keep losing. You have to, at some point, plug the hole and say, oh, stop losing. Comets have a tail on them. The closer they get to the sun, the bigger the tail becomes. By the way, the tail of the comet has nothing to do with...
Yeah. But here's the thing. I already drank for him being basically being right about what comets are in the first place. I don't want to drink every time he tells any factoid about comets. That's true.
Right.
The direction the comet is traveling. That's a hard concept.
Wait, hold on. I think he might have just been stupid.
I think he got it right. But then again,
the thing is, it was disjointed, so I'm going to listen until he says the whole thing. We're going to find out.
You cannot just keep losing. You have to, at some point, plug the hole and say, oh, stop losing. Comets have a tail on them. The closer they get to the sun, the bigger the tail becomes. By the way, the tail of the comet has nothing to do with the direction the comet is traveling.
Okay, true.
That's a hard concept for people to
He's
get.
learned things about
if a comet, let's check my water bottle here. Here we go.
I don't know if that's a hard concept.
If a comet is flying around the sun, we'll make this the sun.
Know, but I think a lot of people
As it gets to here, it's flying this direction. The tail is going that direction. The tail is always perpendicular to the sun. As it can be flying, toward the sun, have a tail behind it. It can be flying away from the sun, and it'll be flying into its own tail. The tail is in front of it. The tail is caused by the solar wind of the sun, and so it has nothing to do with the direction of travel of the comet, just a little bit.
I'm impressed enough by him getting the solar wind aspect right that I'm going to take another drink. You know what? That's
the thing that he learned.
Yeah, I would not actually expect Kent... Oh, take 2 drinks. I would not expect Kent to actually know about the solar wind and how that causes comet tails. I'm genuinely impressed, Kent. Not that it takes much for Kent Hovind to impress me.
I'm merely pressed.
Okay.
Bit of trivia there. Who cares? But anyway, comets have a life expectancy of less than 10,000 years. Littleton, famous astronomer, did a lot of research on this at Oxford, in England. He said comets just have a short life expectancy, less than 10,000 years. He said in the article titled Mysteries of the Solar System, but once so deflected into short period comets, these comets must have comparatively short lifetimes.
I just want to point out there that the source he's using, which by the way is from 1958, Kent, you gave this speech in like 2006, dude.
I think that's a 6. I think it's 68.
Oh, it's 68?
I think so.
Well, let's say it's 68. It's still unbelievably long ago for him giving this lecture now. You're not going to be able to find out just by squinting at
No,
it.
I just wanted to make my face look weird in the camera.
Oh. So, I just want to point out that the thing he's quoting here tells him why this is stupid. But once deflected, what's being deflected? Oh, it's the orbit of a long period comet that has really no lifetime limit on it, being deflected by gravitational encounters with other bodies into having a lower perihelion, which turns it into a short period comet. Oh, big thing for Godzilla. So, yeah,
68, that changes everything.
this source itself, if Kent had actually read it, would tell him why this whole argument is stupid. Because short period comets, which have a time frame that they can last, come from long periods. Don't really have a time frame that they can last other than like the time the solar system will exist.
Astronomically speaking. And probably no short period comet can survive more than about 10,000 years. Here we have an evolutionist saying 10,000 years is max for a comet.
After it becomes a short period comet, which happens to long period comets. What are you saying, Kent? Remember, that's why he used the word deflected.
I don't know that that's true, but it's got to have some kind of lifespan. You can't keep losing, okay? It's going to burn up. Madsen wrote an article, as an anti-Hovind website by a guy named Dave Madsen, one of the over 3,000 or nearly 2,000 anti-Hovind websites.
I need a citation on over 2,000 anti-Hovind websites, but I mean, I guess maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised if, like, every single Kent with Event video would be considered a separate anti-Hovind website by Kent Hovind.
They do all have different URLs. So,
because they all have different URLs. Yeah. Now, he might not think that, but he might. It might all be just like GeoCities pages. You know, who knows?
I could honestly see him making that argument.
By the way, my son and I answer him on my radio program. Dr. Hovind answers his critics. We have actually have a videotape about that, 8 hours of videotape about answering all the critics of the anti-Hovind websites. But
we might know what we have to look for when we're done with the CSE videos. Thanks, Kent.
Thank you for
you can tune into our radio program 4:30 to 6 any day, Central Time, and go to Truth Radio or drdino.com and join us on the program. But this Madsen said, Hovind, because I mentioned about the comets proving the Earth's solar system is not even yet 10,000 years old. He said a Dutch astronomer named Jan Oort proposed.
It's Jan Oort, but okay.
That means he hoped, he wished, he prayed.
No. What a proposal is an educated guess about what an explanation might be, and then you look for evidence to confirm or disconfirm this idea. One of the things about short period comets is that they seem to have similar aphelions, which is the furthest extent from the star, or, well, the sun, which is what you might expect if they're actually all coming from a particular spot out in space with a bunch of sources for comets. So, you know, and by all, I mean, it's a statistically noticeable trend. It's not it's not literally all of them, because they can have subsequent encounters that then lowers their perihelion. So, you know.
There was a great shell of comets at the remote
gravity
frontier
is real.
Well,
of the solar system. His answer was, yes, we still have comets, but that doesn't prove the solar system is less than 10,000 years old, because new ones are coming in to replace the ones that burn out. So sure, they burn out in 10,000 years, and then new ones come in to replace them.
Well, I mean, it's not like the comets wait until the old ones go away, so now there's a new comet slot, which is what Kent just implied, although it didn't state, so I won't drink for it.
His misunderstanding of this is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
He's pretty dumb.
That's his theory, okay? Madsen said, better statistics in more recent years have supported the existence of the Oort cloud and put it at a distance of 50,000 astronomical units from the sun.
Okay, so the next step for you, Kent, is to check the actual statistics, which, like I said, are based on things like there being a common distance for perihelion in comets of about 50,000 AU, apparently, which indicates that that is probably the source of them, since gravitational interactions between any two bodies, both orbiting in roughly the same plane, are more likely to lower the perihelion than they are to lower the aphelion, or raise either of them. you know, that's just a statistical fact from the whole conservation of angular momentum that he likes so much.
That's only something that's important when Kent Hovind mentions it.
Oh, Blocka Delator? Blocka Delator says, you pronounce Jan Oort correctly. Well, that's because I know what to do with a J when it's coming from most Germanic-speaking countries, other than, like the English-speaking ones.
Does Kent think it was a woman named Janet Oort? Or
I-
something like Janice, maybe?
He might, yeah.
Is that what Kent thinks?
He might.
You never can tell.
I mean, look, it's perfectly fine for a woman named Jan Oort to have done this. It's just that that's not what happened.
Yeah.
It was a guy
It
named
would be
Jan.
fine. I don't know if it was a guy. I mean, I wasn't there.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've looked up Jan Oort and
I trust the
He's a
history
guy.
books, though.
here we go. All right, Jan, if you're not a guy, sorry. I just feel like I looked you up before and you were. So if I'm wrong about that, my apologies.
Now, just for your personal information, FYI,
Oh,
the Earth is one
Jan
astronomical
passed away
unit
in
from the Sun.
1992.
And it's pretty easy.
easy to memorize the distance to the planets, apparently from the sun, by memorizing how many AUs they are away, which is like saying it's easy to memorize the distance from the sun to the planets by memorizing the distance from the sun to the planets.
You might be trying to say that's the easiest unit of distance for him to memorize.
Well, of course it is. That's because that's what it was made up for.
I'm
It was
just saying, I think that's what he's saying. I'm
all right. Fair
not
enough.
arguing that it's a smart thing to say. I think that's just what he's... Because you gotta understand that, as dumb as he is, think about his audience.
I guess
No offense, but like,
it's
when I believed Kent, was I dumber than Kent?
no.
No, I was just more ignorant on the reality of it, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we're being
Yeah,
informed that
Jan
Jan.
Oort passed away in 92.
We're being informed that Jan is a Mal name. But you know what? There's no, as far as I know, there's no law. Actually, okay, there could be, because I do know that there are some laws about what you can name children in Scandinavian countries. Never mind. Maybe there is a law.
Oh, nice. I just got a notification that Kent with Ben started.
I am seeing
Thanks,
Olivia
YouTube remind.
Williams saying that there's buffering, but I am not seeing any, so we're going to continue on, and I'm also seeing a strong connection on OBS.
Venus,
I saw a little
0.7.
buffering here and
Earth,
there.
1.
It just happens.
Mars, 1.5. With that, you
Okay.
can calculate
What's
the
it
number of
doing?
miles if you'd like. Take that number times 93 million. Jupiter, 9. Jupiter 5, Saturn 9. I used to know them all. Pluto was just discovered in 1930. I mean,
By the way, we're not drinking for this because I neither know nor care if all of his numbers are right. I know he's right about Earth as 1, but that's by definition, so that's not impressive.
He's like, I know them all. He gets to Jupiter, Saturn, and then just jumps right to Pluto.
Yeah, Neptune and Uranus, those are.
I don't know any of them. I mean, I know Earth is 1, but like, yeah, I've read them. I don't care to memorize the distances from the sun. It seems like a quiz question that Kent would have, though, because it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So why not throw it on a quiz?
it's really tiny and really far out there. It's hard to see Pluto without a really, really good telescope.
True. That's why it was discovered.
And you got to know where to look.
Or send a satellite to go past it.
I don't think that would actually help you find it if you didn't know where it was.
Yeah, but you could see it better.
If you already knew where it was.
We knew where it was.
Good
That's
point.
why we sent the satellite to
But I
take
think Kent
pictures
is
of it.
talking about the difficulty of discovering it.
Well, maybe, but he did. That sentence
That
said
sentence true did not
it's
say
hard
that.
to see without a telescope, which is, at the time, yeah, we hadn't sent. Was it New Horizons? I think, whichever one it was, to Pluto. Ever heard of it?
I have.
Pluto is 39.44 astronomical units away.
Whoa.
And you can barely see the thing.
Yeah.
There is no possible, and they just discovered another one way out there, a 10th planet. At least they think they've got it pretty well pinned down.
I mean, now there's dozens and dozens of Pluto-sized objects that are around that distance, but okay.
And they're going to name it after that movie star Xena. Just what we need.
I'm just going to take a drink because there's no movie star Xena. There's a TV character, Xena, the warrior princess, who was played by Lucy Lawless.
The movie star Lucy Lawless, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. It's Uh, also, it's kind of fun to watch Lucy Lawless have Twitter spats with Kevin Sorbo. He has some really weird hot takes on Twitter.
Maybe put her out in space there, but okay. It is impossible to see a comet which is much smaller than a planet at 50,000 astronomical units.
Yes, the argument for the Oort cloud, my goodness, is not that people have directly observed photons being reflected from the comets of the Oort cloud
With a telescope,
with a telescope.
visually, optically.
We're talking about the statistical evidence of what would we expect if an Oort cloud exists. And it turns out that that's what we see in the actual orbits of short-period comets, Kent. It's kind of like how people knew to look for Uranus after having discovered orbital perturbations of Neptune. Yeah. It's this amazing thing where you say, okay, well, here's how gravity works. And here's the observed orbits of things that we know are orbiting via gravity. And the only reason to expect them to work this way is if some object or objects exist at a certain distance and maybe location. And lo and behold, that's what you get when you plot out the orbits of all the known short-period comets. You get statistical evidence of a source of short-period comets where they get deflected into lower orbits by gravitational encounters. And some get flung out into deep space, but you're not going to find those because they're gone.
How could they possibly know a comet is 50,000 astronomical units away?
They don't know any one comet that's 50,000 astronomical units away, Kent. They have statistical evidence that that's where they come from.
How did they do this?
By math.
Well, this
Why don't you
Dutch
look up how
astronomer
they do it, Kent, instead of looking up how it's fake?
Right?
To get your stupid confirmation bias.
Like, do you want me to
You
rerun
have
the
your
stats?
stinking laptop in front of you.
Jan Oort was looking
Jan.
at the path the comet is traveling. They watch it travel for a few weeks
Drink for Godzilla.
and look at the arch and say, wow, based on this little piece of the arch, I can calculate how far out it goes.
Yes, because that's how orbits work. Orbits aren't magic. You don't have to watch very much of an orbit to know what the actual thing is, because any segment of an orbit can only match one, depending on how closely you know it. If you know it perfectly, you can only match one particular orbit with one eccentricity, one argument of was perihelion, one distance for aphelion and perihelion, one orbital inclination. All of that you can find from watching something for a relatively short period of time. Like, here's something cool. Since Pluto has been discovered, it has yet to make one full orbit around the sun. Does that mean we don't know what its orbit is? No. Figuring out orbits is basically... look, it's not that much more than plugging the numbers into a formula, and then you get the answer out.
Straight line through curved space.
Well, sure.
Space-time. Yeah.
It's basically just... this is a flat Earth level argument. All you have is math. Trigonometry. It doesn't count. No, it does. It does count. And Tesla Ranger, don't worry about me beating you to it because, there's a delay, so I'm always going to likely beat you to it if I say it at all. My goodness, it's just... math doesn't work. Newton? Who's that? Einstein? Never heard of him. That's Kent's, actual take here. I'm taking a drink where Kent is like, you can't just calculate orbits. As if that's not how NASA works every day.
You believe in NASA?
How do you
Kent
think
has stated that he does not believe in black holes.
That's
I don't know
true.
if that opinion has changed.
Okay, but he does believe in the moon landings and the rovers on Mars, and those required course corrections. The only way you can calculate a course correction is, one, if you know what orbit you're on now, and how it differs from the orbit you need to be on, and then
And he
you can
also
calculate the
doesn't-
thrust needed to make the course correction.
And he's also not a flat earther, so
So again, all of this should be
he
trivial.
kind
for
of
him.
should know better.
Yeah, he should. Many of the things that he already accepts as just everyday, as real things that occur every day, although not common, NASA sending probes places, require orbits to be able to be calculated from small amounts of data relative to the whole watching a whole orbit. Oh, goodness.
This is ludicrous, okay?
I agree with you, Kent. This is ludicrous. Your inability to understand how math works is indeed ludicrous.
Nobody's ever seen this Oort cloud. Oort never saw the Oort cloud.
Correct. We'll take a drink.
The whole
I guess.
thing's based on a mathematical mistake. Even Littleton said that. He wrote an article called The
How is it a
Non-Existence.
Because some guy in 1974 said maybe it was.
On pages 385 through 401.
Yeah, of Astrophysics and Space Science, Volume 31.
All right, I'm going to look this up. The non-existence of the Oort cometary shell.
But I wonder what's happened in the 50 years since then, almost. I guess it's like 48 years.
I don't, because as soon as I read this paper, I'll no longer believe in the Oort cloud.
Oh, good.
Why would I need any evidence suggesting that this guy was wrong?
Yeah, no updates could possibly have happened in the next
Well, I don't
half
care
a
about
century.
updates. I just want to be right
Oh.
by having a paper that tells me something dumb.
Yes,
I
any
think I'm right.
one paper from 50 years ago that agrees with your bias. There you go. That's all you need.
Well, this
Of the
is too hard for me to read. There's not enough pictures in it.
Darn it.
Oort cometary shell. Oort proposed a cloud of comets surrounding the solar system based on mathematical errors. He was wrong. Even Carl Sagan said, many
That's a joke that didn't like.
scientific papers are written each year about the Oort cloud,
Disrespectful,
its
too.
properties, its origin, its evolution.
Or
Yet
maybe
there is
it's
not a
but he reads
shred
it
of
that
direct
way.
observational evidence for its existence.
Right, which is what everyone has always been saying. No one has looked into the sky and collected photons on their telescope that are verifiably from an object in the Oort cloud. That's
By
not-
that logic, Kent still won't believe in black holes, even though we've taken pictures of them, because you really can't see the black hole.
It's true, it's just the
There's
accretion
no light
disk.
coming from it. So all you're just seeing is a dark spot
And the
then
accretion
or
disk,
an accretion disk.
which is not
Okay,
actually the
move.
black hole. It could be anything in there.
Nobody's ever seen this thing. But
So
Madsen in his
seeing is
article about me,
believing, and then Kent believes in Jesus, who he's never seen. Got it.
I feel like there was a whole thing about some guy named Thomas about why that's not a good stand.
The doubting guy?
Yeah.
Well, that part isn't important.
Oh,
The only
okay.
important part of the Bible is the
Genesis part.
flood, which is what, 75% of the Bible by text?
Yeah, I think so. I think about
Isn't-
75%
isn't
of
the
the Bible is
flood-
taken up with flood.
With the flood story? Okay.
And
that's what
somewhere
I
it's
thought.
like, and then the
Yeah.
Jesus guy did some stuff.
Yeah.
Basically how the Bible goes.
said, Hovind, if you want to use the comet argument about this, to prove the Earth is young, it's up to you to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the Oort cloud and other sources don't exist.
Correct. And here's why, right? If all we had was, say, a solar system which we'd done no dating on, we had no idea how it could have formed, it just exists, right? We're plopped down, fresh minds, tabula rasa, and we observe comets. And for some reason, they're the only thing that we can use to reasonably date how old the solar system is. Because for some reason, all the other avenues are just far to us. But we have telescopes. We don't have radiometric dating. We don't have anything about, like, isotopic ratios that we can compare to other stars to see if there was, like, a stellar nursery from which we all originated, and if so, how long ago that might have been. We don't have enough observations of various stars to work out things like the life cycle of main sequence stars, so then we can compare that to what we see from the sun to see how old it is. None of that. All we have is comets, their decay rate, and there you go. In that ridiculous scenario, you would not need to disprove the existence of an Oort cloud in order to say that this indicates a young Earth or young solar system. It would on its own. However, in the real world, where we have many ways besides comets to know that the solar system is in fact billions and not thousands of years old, the presumption is that if comets exist in such a system, there's likely a location for them. And then on top of that, we have positive mathematical evidence, statistical evidence, for the existence of such a reservoir. So now we have the entirety of all other dating options weighing against the idea of a young solar system, plus statistical evidence for a reservoir from which new short period comets can come. Therefore, the presumption is that since reality is something that's generally internally consistent, then the presumption is that comets do indeed come from this source for which we have statistical evidence. And if you want to say that they don't, the presumption is on you to make some kind of argument as to why such things do not exist. Sorry, Kent, but I don't know who Matson is, but he's right. The presumption is on the rest of science being right and you being wrong. It's your job to show that such a thing doesn't exist because we do have positive evidence for it, even if it's not direct observational evidence. Just like I'll remind everyone, we had statistical, mathematical evidence for the existence of Uranus before we found it by looking at it. Weird.
Now, wait a minute.
How
could I
Ha!
possibly prove the non-existence of
I think
something?
that was Neptune, though.
That's actually pretty easy, Ken. If you could show that there is actually no statistical provenance of comets having particular perihelia or something like that, right? Where you could say that, at such a distance, the interstellar medium has some property that would strip things, that light, from being gravitationally bound to the sun. Something like those are just two options off the top of my head that could show that an Oort cloud is non-feasible. So why don't you try? Why don't you just try? David DB Number says that Kent doesn't acknowledge the Earth has a molten core. I'm not actually sure if that's the case. I would probably need to see a video where he said that.
Wouldn't you have to be all places at the same instant to prove something doesn't exist?
No, because we're not actually asking you to prove it doesn't exist. We're asking you to provide evidence. Now, Matson might have used the word prove. He shouldn't have. There you go.
Why would you have to be everywhere? Why wouldn't you just have to be where the Oort cloud is supposed to be?
That's true. Yeah, if you're localizing this does not exist here, you don't need to be everywhere. So if I say elephants don't exist anywhere in the universe, well then yeah, you probably have to be everywhere in the universe to prove that conclusively. But if I said there are no elephants in this house, that's actually pretty easy to prove. Because if there were elephants, I should expect certain things, like, to see an elephant. Or at least to smell an elephant.
I would bet money, although I can't prove it, that there are no elephants in the Oort cloud.
Probably. But I couldn't prove it. But I could very conclusively demonstrate that there are none in the room I'm in right now. It would not be very hard to do. Because there are certain things that we would expect to see if there were one. We don't see those. Therefore, the reasonable conclusion is that it doesn't exist. Similarly, for the Oort cloud, there are things that could, one, preclude it from existing, or likely preclude it from existing, or there would be things that we would expect to see if it didn't exist. For instance, there not being statistical correlations between the orbits of short-period comets that indicate the existence of a source at about 50,000 AU. Go23 says, so you're not going to talk about the elephant in the room? No, apparently not.
I laughed on the inside.
Even if I was really fast and could go all places, which I can't, couldn't they move it between visits and still never find it?
No, Kent, there isn't a supernatural conspiracy to prevent you from finding the Oort cloud.
The Oort cloud?
Yeah, no. Who's they? That's just stupid. I'm taking a drink.
He's trying to shift the burden of proof
right now
to make it look like I've got a problem with comets. If I said, hey, watermelons are blue on the inside until you cut the skin, prove I'm wrong. That's called shifting the burden of proof.
Okay, but then what if you did that and then it's red on the inside? And then you're like, no, but it's blue though. You haven't given me evidence.
So here's what you would want to do, right? You would want to find out what is it that makes the color change from red to blue. And if there's no proposed mechanism, then there's no reason to think it's the case, right? But
it's just not blue.
But let's say
that's the thing, though. It's not blue. It's red. Well, there's evidence of an Oort cloud, and Kent's just saying there isn't any.
But let's go through the hypothetical, right? Let's say
someone did.
But let's say someone did say the flesh of watermelons is blue until you cut the skin, at which point it turns to red. Okay, I mean that's a claim that we could try to figure out. There's a whole bunch of different options we could do. One is, well, okay, watermelons don't reflect all of the light that bounces onto them. They scatter some of it. So could we get a sufficiently bright light source behind an uncut watermelon and then analyze what comes to the other side and see if we can filter out the green from the skin and then look at the remainder. Is it primarily red or is it primarily blue? Okay, that's one option. Another option could be, well, what's the proposed mechanism for turning red? Some people I know have believed that blood is blue until it's exposed to the air because it oxidizes. Let's say that's our hypothesis. It turns red because it oxidizes rapidly. Well, that's easy. cut open a watermelon in a vacuum chamber. If it's still red when you cut it open, well, probably wasn't the oxygen doing that, and so there's no good reason to think about that being the case. Or another option: what if you put a light with a camera and a battery in, very small, inside the flower that was going to turn into a watermelon? Because I mean, they're fruit, right? They grow from flowers. That's how things like insect larvae get inside fruit without leaving a hole on the outside. They're actually, the eggs are deposited on the flower. So do that. Then turn on the camera, shine the light, and if red light comes back, well, there you go. If blue light comes back, then no. So even in these circumstances where Kent is trying to give us this hypothetical where you couldn't prove this wrong, no, you could demonstrate it's probably not true in various ways, Kent. You're just not trying. I didn't really expect to have, like, a whole sidebar on, like, how to show that watermelons aren't blue when I started this, but...
It would be impossible.
No,
and he says, I've got to prove there's no comet out there in the Oort cloud.
No, you have to demonstrate why it's unlikely.
How do I prove there's no... He says, I have to prove the Oort cloud doesn't exist. Dave, nobody ever sees it. Here's what we know. We know we have comets.
Oh, and he did use proof, but then he said beyond reasonable doubt, which, yeah, that is actually fair. It is up to you to show that there's no reasonable reason to think that the Oort cloud exists.
Comets. We know they don't last long.
Mm-hmm.
We know the Bible says the Earth is about 6,000 years old.
Which is in evidence, and also it doesn't, but whatever.
I don't have a problem with comets.
You do,
They fit
though.
my theory fine.
Actually, you know what? I'm not
You
going to
don't
say that
even
you
have
do.
a theory, Kent.
Well, first, yeah, he doesn't have a theory, so... And actually, to be honest, I don't actually think he has a problem with comets. I think there being comets is neutral to the existence, or the young Earth creationism, and I think their age is reasonably consistent with it. So yeah, I'll agree, you don't have a problem. However, if you want to say that long age ideas, science basically, has a problem with comets, then you have to show that the Oort cloud can't reasonably.
Some of my best friends are comets. They would be numbers. That's good.
All right, we only got 36 seconds left. I'm expecting him to start preaching soon, and then we're going to have to take like a maybe 30-second quick intermission to change videos.
But he wants it to appear like I've got a problem with comets. I say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to buy that. I think the heavens declare the glory of God. We'll talk more about that next class, next
Maybe,
Thursday.
but that's unrelated
Thanks for joining
to
us. Any questions
comets.
before we take off?
Yeah.
For
Or
more
maybe it isn't.
All right, well, that's that video. We just finished CSE 201 Class 6. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mute us. We're going to go off for a quick intermission just to switch videos, and then we will be right back with CSE 201 Class 7. Also, Mackenzie Brown has been a member for 3 months at the Tetrapod level. Thank you very much, Mackenzie, with a Godzilla emoji, so we'll take a drink for that. And Mackenzie says, AIG bat, etc. And I agree wholeheartedly. Well, sorry for showing the intro, but we have a new video. It looks like we don't, but I promise you. So, without any further ado, let's just get into it.
Well, welcome to our class number 7. We are going through at a snail's pace our seminar on creation, evolution, and dinosaurs, and chasing every rabbit. And feel free to interrupt, ask any questions, okay, if you don't understand. In Psalm 19,
many
amazing
questions,
passage.
but I don't
we
think you
have
can
to
hear
cover all-
me.
Yeah, if we had been in this class, it would have been nothing but interruptions.
Number 1, how dare you?
Number 2, who do you think you are?
What
Number
gives
3,
you the right?
those are the first 3 questions.
all that tonight. It says the heavens, notice heaven is plural, heavens, we'll get into more of that later. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. It's interesting, the Bible claims that the very creation shouts out the glories of the Creator. The evolution theory has the sun and stars evolving before the earth. God said real clearly he made the earth before the sun and stars. People say, how did they have light before the sun? Well, the first 13 verses of the Bible, there is light, but there is no sun. God is the light thereof. The very last 26 verses of the Bible, there is light, but there is no sun. So God doesn't need the sun. Probably God did it that way. I don't know why.
I like how the implication is clearly that God directly chose the order of the Bible, which isn't true. Like, you can watch that shift around, and in fact, that book that's at the end that apparently directly directed by God to be at the end of the Bible, that was one of the last Bibles to actually be, last books to actually be accepted into the New Testament canon, and it's actually still not read in church in most Christian churches today. It's in their printed versions of the Bible, but they don't actually read from it. So it's like barely in the Bible.
He can do what he wants.
My church did.
Protestant churches are the ones that most likely to read from Revelation.
They would do sermons on like why you're going to hell or whatever, and then they'd pick different parts of the Bible, and Revelation would be part of it. Or it's not always why you're going to hell, but they would. Excuse me. Yeah, they would read from it. So.
Probably because many cultures worship the sun, and God in his wisdom knew, they're going to worship this thing, and I want them to know I'm in charge, not the sun in charge. You got to have the sun, you got to have air, you got to have water, but you don't have to worship it, okay? If you study...
I mean, honestly, I do think there may actually be some merit to the claim that the reason that God creates the sun as an external object and there isn't a particular god of the sun, whether the creator deity or not, may actually be for polemical purposes against local polytheistic religions on which, like in the context of which the first 5 books of the Pentateuch or the Torah were written, which is probably around the time of the Babylonian exile. So,
The evolution theory compared to the Bible, absolutely every single thing is backwards.
All right, let's see about this. Let's see. Bible, Earth before the sun. Yeah. Evolution, sun before the earth. Okay. Oceans before land.
Checkmate, atheists.
Ocean. Light before the sun. Okay, so actually, light before the sun, I'm gonna have to say it actually agrees, because the sun isn't the start of the universe. Like, there was light before the sun, so I'm gonna disagree. There was in fact light before the sun, according to quote-unquote evolution, which, by the way, at least the first 3 of these have nothing to do with evolution, but okay, Kent. Land plants first, marine plants first. Yep, that is a difference. Trees before fish. Say that? I guess it does, but I feel like that's just the same point as number 4.
I just don't care. Bible pants before shoes, says Liz D. I care just as much about that as I care about any of this.
Whales before insects is a...
Insects before whales, though.
That is such an oddly specific thing, and I don't remember the Bible actually talking about whales specifically, but I guess if you're going with, like, sea and air creatures are on, what is it, like day 4, and day 5? No, I think it's
whales
lands
are
on day 4.
mammals.
And then it's sea creatures. Well, yeah, but Kent doesn't care. Sea creatures and flying creatures are on day 5, I think, and then land creatures are on day 6. If I remember all of that correct. Which I probably don't, because quite honestly, it doesn't matter to me. Go in.
Yeah, don't
Everything
pay attention
is
to the
backwards.
order.
The Bible has the earth before the sun. Evolution has the sun before the earth. Opposite. The Bible has oceans made before the land. Remember, the Bible says God created the earth and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of...
Yeah.
the waters.
I guess. That's
Evolution has
opposite.
land before oceans. They say it was a hot molten mass and it had to cool off for billions of years or
Why
hundreds
does
of
he have
millions
bullet points and number points, or whatever you call it?
He's bad at this.
Just do one or the other.
of years before it cooled enough for, water vapor to condense. Exact opposite. The Bible says he made light before the sun. Evolution says the sun came.
So he doesn't actually have them lined up, which makes it harder to cross-reference. That's the real problem for me. It's like, not only are you doing bullets plus numbers, which is dumb, but you can't even be bothered to line them up correctly. Like, at 1 and 2, they're pretty good.
Because
But then
Oceans
3,
Before Land was too long, but he didn't care.
yeah.
He's like, nah, too
You
bad.
hit enter a couple times, Ken. Just do that.
Before the light. The Bible says land plants were created first, and evolution says marine life came first. Life developed in the oceans before any land plants. The Bible says fruit trees came before the fish were created. And evolution says no, fish came before fruit trees. If you look at any geologic column in any textbook, you'll see this is exactly correct. Evolution.
Okay, hold on. I'm
Oh
going
my
to take a
gosh.
drink for how stupid this is. Okay. So,
I thought Kent doesn't believe in a geologic column.
he doesn't, but he does believe that they're in textbooks. So,
That's true, yeah.
the fossils displayed in a geological column graph, I guess, in a textbook are going to be there because, one, that's the order those layers come in, even if sometimes some of them are missing, which is actually usually some of them are missing. And those are the characteristic fossils found in there. So basically what Kent is saying is that because the horrible, absurd reason that evolution says that this is the order in which things appeared as far as living creatures are concerned is because, one, they reasonably conclude that you can't deposit new sediment underneath already existing sediment because, that's not how things work. Things fall down and then hit the top layer of whatever they're falling on. They don't fall through rock, usually. And because this is the order in which we find these organisms through these layers, that means that the bottom ones were first, and the top ones were last, and in between in that order. That seems like a pretty hard to refute conclusion. You're going to have to come up with a whole bunch of crazy ways to get things sorted that way that doesn't actually indicate, a temporal sequence. And so far, Kent has not managed to do that in anything that I've seen of his. So, the reason science, anthropomorphizing science a bit, says that this is the order of evolution is because it's the order we find them in. That's it. That's the whole thing, right? It's like, I don't even know.
Evolution theory is backwards on everything. The Bible says he made fish before insects. Evolution says he made insects evolve before fish.
Does it actually?
I thought you said whales in the slide, though.
You said
Not
whales,
fish.
but here's the thing. I actually
Fish and
don't
whales,
know.
not the same thing.
I think fish come before insects. So hold on. We're going to type in evolution of insects. Let's see what we get. We're just going to Google some stuff. Okay. Insects evolved at the same time as the earliest land plants around 480 million years ago. Well, I'm pretty sure that's later than the first fish.
I would think so.
I mean, I guess it depends on what you define as a fish, but like gneth and fish.
Insects are older than trees, right?
They are.
That would have been an interesting planet to live on.
Let's see. Yeah, fish 530 million years ago or so. So yeah, fish do in fact come first in evolution, not insects. There were fish first. Now, maybe Kent's thinking arthropod, but that's not what he said. Coffee Breath for $4.99 US said, unrelated, but have you seen Prehistoric Earth on Apple TV Plus? David Attenborough, that lasted for like 20-something hours, man. So, instead, I basically just went to bed and kind of did nothing, and then badly edited together a video today, and then I posted it, and when I found out that there was at least one mistake, I still didn't have it in me to fix that, so that's probably how it's going to stay. Because, I occasionally get cluster headaches, and they kind of ruin the day when they happen. It's very hard to get anything done on that day.
It looks like this.
Yeah, for hours.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And how does his hand reach? It does. That's how bad the headache is.
I have a very flexible neck, as many dinosaurs do. So my plan is to watch it next time I feel like I have a night off, basically, and I don't know when that will be.
There is no fish clade.
So
Wait, I thought I was a fish though.
it's true that when you define fish, it's tricky. I'm going with a definition of fish that's basically like olfactorates. Because if you count like quote unquote agnathan fish, like lampreys and hagfish, then that gives you a pretty wide route that does start before insects. Now, if you're going to be like, oh, ray-finned fish, well, then it's probably after insects, but I'm not sure, actually. But the earliest things that I think most people would look at and be like, yeah, that's a fish, do in fact come before insects. So we're going to take a drink for Kent getting it wrong about fish and insects.
Here's a geologic column.
Okay, Kent. Did Kent break?
Insects came after fish. I got
He's
this
been
one
broken for a
backwards.
while,
Don't I? I
but-
got to go back and change that. Okay.
Yes, insects come after fish. In both, right?
Yay! Well, because he said whales before. Wait a minute. Dino Lab Science Center.
Oh, goodness.
I haven't seen this angle in a while.
I'm not even sure I have seen this angle. Although I do appreciate the Ukrainian colors, Kent. Good job. Way to
He didn't
support.
even know.
He didn't even know. He didn't know that decades later we would be here
Well-
and say, hey, good job.
That was a prediction made by Kent. Good job, Kent.
Evolution has fish evolving, what, 200 and
I think he
200,
meant whales.
300
but
million
it
years ago,
doesn't
and insects
matter.
coming
I'm
150.
ready for Kent to move on.
Okay, hold on. This is his circle for fish, but the earliest thing I see as fish is one layer up from the bottom. So, Kent,
I can't.
you
Yeah, I
put-
can't tell what you're looking at. I mean, it's way too blurry for me. I believe you though.
You put up on screen the thing that shows that you're lying to people.
Yeah,
Because
but he circled the other part.
he put visibly
No.
on the screen other fish from lower.
That's just lines on paper.
Oh
Look
my
at where the
goodness.
circle is.
No, I'm taking a drink.
Circles aren't lines. They're rough.
My goodness. Kent.
I don't know how you rationalize Kent's. I'm trying, Kent. I'm trying to pretend to be on your
time
side
for,
here.
It's time
but
for me to pour a
it doesn't
new
work.
drink. Let's pop that little cap right there. Here we go. Let's try for a good pour. So don't get too much head. Okay. There we go. One monolayer of bubbles is what I consider to be acceptable.
Million years ago. I think I need to change that one. According to Genesis, the creeping things were created before the fish. Look at Genesis.
I thought the creeping things were created on day 6, and the fish were created on day 5, Ken.
Chapter 5. Let me put a question on that. And,
Uh-oh. We're actually seeing Kent kind of fact-check him, and it's the first time I've ever heard any indication that he's ever fact-checked himself. Kent, next time, you should fact-check yourself. You should check to see,
Or
I don't know,
class.
what 1st and 2nd Timothy 1:1 say. Just check on that. You know, maybe you'll stop saying that Timothy wrote 2 books of the Bible. Just a tip.
I may have to modify 0.6. I think I have got them reversed here in the wrong one. Because evolution has insects after, fish before insects.
Yes, it does have fish before insects.
Evolution says.
Yeah.
Genesis, I'll go back and look at that one.
Let's look at it for him. Genesis 1 is not exactly the longest chapter in the Bible. So let's see, Genesis 1. So we'll do King James because Kent likes the King James.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's the only one that counts.
So, and God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered. Okay, It's in the firmament. Okay, verse 20. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that hath life, and the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created the great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God said that saw that it was good. Let's see. Then, and that is the 5th day. Then on verse 24, And God said, "Let the earth bring forth every living creature after its kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth." And it was so. And that is on day 6. So yeah, according to both Kent, insects predate fish. So no, apparently evolution isn't backwards and everything. You just can't get the Bible right, which is kind of embarrassing, given it is apparently the only book you've ever read.
It's his favorite science book.
Apparently.
Let's finish the rest of these here. The Bible has plants before the sun. Plants on day 3,
more.
sun on...
Deemwing, I think it's Deemwing. You know what? Let me know. Ideally, put in some International Phonetic Alphabet transcription, but if you can't, let me know as much as you can. I don't have time to watch now, but I thought I'd drop in and send more than Ken's doctorate is worth.
Oh, nice.
Ooh. Yeah,
I'm gonna say
you know
it's
what?
Die M-Wing, but I'm guessing it's probably not.
Die M-Wing? I don't know.
What's an M-Wing?
You know what? It's not doesn't actually meet any of the drink triggers, but that's good enough for me to take a drink, because you know what? Cheers on that one. That was pretty good. So we have new more. These are more of them now. We're on to 10 now. They do line up a bit better, which is good. Plants before the sun, some before the plants. Yep. Marine mammals before land mammals. Yeah, I'll give you that. Birds before reptiles. Reptiles before birds. I mean, as long as we acknowledge that birds are a subset of reptiles, then yeah, they do come after the first reptiles in evolution. Atmosphere between 2 layers of water. Well, I mean, that's just demonstrably wrong. There's no water above the atmosphere, Kent. Atmosphere above water. I mean, Kent, NASA didn't have to go swimming to get to the moon. That's just a thing. If you're gonna be like, oh, it's a cosmic ocean beyond the observable universe, well, okay, then it's an unresolvable question, because it's beyond the observable edge of the universe, we can't observe it. So, as far as we're concerned, it doesn't exist.
Day 4. Evolution has the sun created, billions of years before the Earth even came around. So it's backwards on the order of creation.
Wait, did he just say that evolution says the sun was around for billions of years before the Earth?
I think that he said that.
Okay, we have to rewind a second, because that's stupid enough.
Whatever he said,
I'm not even sure.
That's before the sun. Plants on day 3, sun on day 4. Evolution has the sun created, billions of years before the Earth even came around. So
Photosynthesis.
That's dumb. So here's the thing. The entire solar system accreted from an interstellar nebula more or less simultaneously. And all of the planets started accreting in the accretion disk, again, roughly simultaneously. There was certainly not a multi-billion year gap between the formation of the sun as a distinct object and the formation of the Earth as a distinct object. It was probably more like maybe tens of millions of years. When you're talking about, 4.5 or so billion years, a few tens of millions of years is a pretty minor amount of time. It's basically simultaneous. Okay. Guptu3 says it's German for M-Wing. That doesn't really help me know how to pronounce it, though.
So it's backwards on the order of creation. The Bible has marine mammals coming before land mammals. Things in the water made first on day 5. Marine or land mammals made on day 6. Evolution has land mammals first, and then they evolved back into the ocean. Think about that. Evolutionist says, oh yeah, some fish came up out of the water, evolved legs, walked on land, turned around.
Well, it evolved leg-like structures before it really started walking around on land, because it turns out leg-like structures are useful even underwater, as evidenced by multiple fish today who have adapted their fins to be
leg-like structures?
Yeah, leg-like structures.
Would that be evidence of evolution still happening today?
Yes.
What? That's crazy.
There's one ridiculously weird group of fish that have evolved several of the leading rays in their rayed fins, on their pectoral fins, into little spider legs that they use with little joints inside to crawl across the surface of the ocean, and it's like one of the creepiest things you've ever seen.
I need to look this up. What is this called?
Honestly, I don't remember the name of the fish, but if you look like something like fish walks like spider, that'll probably get you. And if you do, let us know what the name of the fish is, because I honestly can't remember.
around, went back into the water, and became a whale. Evolved onto land and then evolved back.
Yeah, Ken.
It is pretty interesting.
Does it have the name on there?
No, I'm talking about what Ken's talking about.
Oh, yes, it is. It is indeed.
That is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't
The Bible
believe in
has
it,
birds.
No.
it happened.
Before reptiles. Evolution has reptiles before birds. Again, go back and look at the geologic column.
Again, we have to remember that birds are reptiles, so it's a little weird to say it that way, but yeah, okay.
The ones they publish in the
It's just a sea
textbooks,
spider.
you'll see that's exactly what they do.
Oh, okay. DMVing. All right, I'm going to go with DMVing, if I can remember.
Teach. It is backwards to the Bible. The Bible says the atmosphere was between two layers of water, and evolution says the atmosphere is above the water. The Bible.
Yeah, see, there's this thing where, at a rough approximation, Earth is kind of like a density tower, right? So you have iron and some other heavier elements in the middle. Then you move up into the mostly silicate, but also some other magma and stuff in the mantle. Then you get to mostly silicates and lighter elements up in the top. And then what's lighter than that is water that's above that. And then above that is things like gases, which are even lighter. In order to suppose that there's a bunch of water above that, you would just have to ignore gravity, or you would require a firmament, which is a solid crystal dome, which is in fact what the Bible is saying when it talks about the firmament. Because that's what firmament means. It's literally from the same etymology, both in Hebrew and in English, of things that are solid, right? Like the Hebrew brings to mind an eggshell. The English brings to mind a solid, immovable object for the same reason. The firmament is thought to be a solid dome which separates water above from water below. But we know none of that's true. In fact, Kent doesn't even believe it. He just decides that part of the Bible he doesn't have to take very literally. It's okay. That's just metaphorical. The idea of an eggshell over Earth, don't worry about that. The rest of it, we have to take that very literally. Totally literally, guys.
Says these are the two most important ones, these last two. If you don't get anything else, get these. The Bible says man brought death into the world. What does evolution say? Death brought man into the world.
Well, given that we have evidence of dead things long before we have evidence of humans, yeah.
How did we get here? Oh, billions of things died before they slowly evolved into man. This is probably the most critical and most dangerous difference between the two religions. Creation and evolution are both religious worldviews.
Oh, hey, you know what?
So Kent's not a Christian, he's a creationist as a religion. You got it. That makes sense, actually.
Brought man into the world. Charles Darwin in his book said, I'm bewildered. He wrote to a friend. He said, I had no intention to write atheistically, but there seems to be so much misery in the world. He said, from the war of famine and death, the most exalted object we're capable of conceiving, the production of higher animals follows. Darwin thought death was the process that drove the whole thing to work.
Kind of. It's differential reproductive success, which does not actually require the death of anything. So differential reproductive success goes like this. Let's say that person A has 8 kids. Person B has 2. In the next generation, there's going to be more genetic material as a proportion of all the genetic material in the population from person A than person B. Now, if all of the descendants of person A and B all have roughly the same kids, then slowly A is going to start to take over, as long as that persists, the gene pool, without anyone needing to die as a result of this selection, right? And if there's something about the genetics of A that actually makes person A's kids more likely to have more kids, then even if none of person B's kids die without reproducing, person A's genetic material will still come to dominate the gene pool even faster. No one in particular actually has to die. In fact, even if you had a situation where they were just immortal humans, but they still reproduced, then differential reproductive success would still determine the evolution of future generations. So evolution doesn't technically require death. Now, obviously, there's evidence of death all through the geological column, so it's incorporated into the ideas about what actually happened. But, in a vacuum, no, you don't actually need death for evolution to work. In fact, evolutionary algorithms, there's really no way to define what death would even mean if you're doing things like evolutionary algorithms in computers. Like if you wanted to say design a new airplane via evolutionary algorithms, which people do, by the way, old designs don't die. They just still exist, stored on the computer. What would it even mean for that design to die? It's not the final design, but it's still right there. You can just go back to it and generate new iterations based on it. But actually, we're going to take a quick break because we are actually slightly late for our break. So guys, stick with us. We're only going to be gone for just a few minutes. You're going to get to see some lovely music, or actually hear some lovely music. Well, there's visualizations that go along with it, so both.
Nice music.
There you go. All right, welcome back. Sorry about that little break, but you know, there's some stuff we got to take care of every once in a while. Anyway, before we get going, I just want to do a quick little commercial, I guess, which is to say that, guys, the channel has been doing well, and I really appreciate all the support. In fact, it has been in the black last few months more than it's been in the red, and that really helps with the sustainability of the channel. Right now, the channel doesn't necessarily have an expiration date. However, that is always fragile. Any little thing like YouTube deciding to just demonetize stuff, which it does sometimes, or the algorithm just turning against me, which it does, could make it so that the channel just slips back into the red. So if you want to make sure that that doesn't happen, please do consider, if you can afford it, joining the channel with a join link right below this video, or linked in the description is the channel Patreon. Both of them get you access to the exclusive Discord server, where I am keeping pretty careful track of what's going on there. I certainly get all my tags in that channel, or that Discord, sorry. It also gets you early access to about 2 months or so worth of content. Pretty consistently, it's about 2 months or so out that the early content is out there. Just one video just went up today, which if you're watching this in the future is May 31st. It really does help the channel a lot if you donate to either. And if you can't afford it, then that's fine. Please don't if you can't afford it. Just share these videos, like the videos, comment on them. All that really helps the channel out. Because, yeah, it's a fragile thing. And it's been going very well in the last few months. But I want to make sure that it can stay there consistently. So that I don't have to cut back on content for you guys. Tombax for $10 says, thanks for doing what you do. Thank you very much, Tombax. I really appreciate that. And also, hey, look, super chats help. Every single bit helps. So anything you can do to help support the channel, even if it's just liking and sharing, please do that. But you're not here to hear me talk about boring channel logistical stuff, right? You're here.
No, you're here to hear you talk about
boring Kenthoven things.
Not yet. What we're doing after this stream.
Oh, that's true. If you do join, we do usually do watch parties after Camp with Bent. Assuming that there isn't something pressing that I need to do. There have been times when I'm actually kind of been a little sick. Nah, forget that. But normally we do, and I believe this time, what is the vote standing at right now?
Well, the last time I checked, when I changed my vote, which is still for sale, by the way, we have a drastic comeback. And now Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I believe, is retaking the lead over
Wow.
over Dino Fury.
Well, here's something. So, guys, if
Wow.
you want to tell us whether or not to have Bent's vote go for Dino Fury or Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I guess you can super chat it. I super chat.
Oh, now it's swinging strongly.
Uh-oh.
My vote's changing back.
All right.
Now it's 6-3. Mighty Morphin over Dino Fury. Ooh.
All right, well, here we go.
Now think about it. If one animal evolves a little better than the rest, what must happen to the rest of them?
They have to reproduce a little bit less. That's what it means to evolve, quote unquote, better. It means to be more fit, which is measured by reproductive success.
In order for this to work, they all got to die.
No, take a drink. That's dumb.
I mean, if you got one cow that evolves just a little bit better, whatever.
Which means has more babies than the other cows, who then go on to themselves have babies.
Now, the rest of them have to die, or else the new improved cow model...
There's only one family of cows.
Right?
Every cow is a brother or sister to every other cow.
Seriously.
Somehow,
Just blended
magically. For no
into the-
reason.
You pause too much, and then I hit start, and then you say things again.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
population. It's lost.
No, Kent, that's not... Look, I know I already went over it, but I'm going to go over it again really quickly just to hammer home the thing, right? It's differential reproductive success. Selection against can mean death before reproduction. That's heavy, strong selection against. But it need not mean that. It can simply mean that you have fewer offspring, but you do have them. And then as that continues on, if it persists, just by genetic drift, your genes are likely to get eliminated from the gene pool anyway, without anyone needing to have died before they reproduced. My goodness.
So you have to get the inferiors to die. This is exactly what Adolf Hitler thought.
Drink.
Oh, it's always out of the blue. It's always out of the blue.
But hey, we'd gone a while without drinking for that one.
I know.
It was actually nice. I was enjoying not having to deal with that. Because, guys, when do I ever really want to talk about the National Socialist German Workers' Party or people in charge of it? It's
Probably
almost
never.
never. It's almost never. It's very rare. I talked about it a little bit today because it came up in a different conversation, which was to say, hey, even they figured out that the Catholic Church was abusing children. Kind of rough when you can be compared unfavorably to 1930s Germany. And that was the Catholic Church. So, in case anyone thought I was a fan of the Catholic Church after deciding to do his thing, just absolving them of having created Islam, still not actually a fan of the institution. They just didn't create Islam. Okay, here we go.
And he thought he was going to speed up the process by finding out who the inferiors are and eliminating them.
Okay, so now I have to get into weird anti-evolutionary eugenics because he, the leader of Germany at this time, we're trying not to say it too much because, it'll get you demonetized if you talk about it too much. He wasn't actually pro-evolution. He was actually a creationist, but what he believed was that certain groups of humans were actually separate creations and were inferior in certain ways, but they were still reproductively compatible with the highest form of humanity.
They're of the same kind somehow, or something like that.
Something like that. It's...
If he believed in kinds.
I mean, look, he wasn't a biologist, so his biological ideas are kind of hard to...
neither is Uncle Kent, no relation.
So, the idea of eugenics was, in fact, to purify the human genetics, but it wasn't because he wanted to get humans to evolve to some new higher state. It was because he wanted them to revert to the earlier, quote-unquote, pure state that had been corrupted by interbreeding with what he saw as inferior humans. So it's fundamentally like backwards compared to what evolution is actually talking about, where you make adaptations to become ever better adapted to your environment through new mutations that provide selective advantages. None of that was on the radar for the eugenicists in Germany in the 30s and the 40s. That wasn't the thing that they were thinking about.
I relate. Keanu Wolf makes me wish I still drank.
Yeah. You know, I'm just taking another
Although I
drink.
probably didn't pronounce it the way you intended, but you know.
I'm taking another drink because I really, really don't like talking about this topic if I can avoid it.
Yeah, I feel like it's just something that has been mentioned enough. It's probably fine to skip over if you want to, but
We'll see.
Just speed this up a little bit.
It has been addressed a lot.
And of course, history tells us what happened. The Bible says God created
see,
man.
it didn't last long.
What does evolution say?
Oh, there's even more.
How many... This is just a formatting thing, man. When you put up a bullet list, people expect, one, for the initial bullet list to either have the whole thing, or two, if you can't fit it on one page, to have like a page 1 out of 2 or something, and then you click through both so they can get an outline of what you're going to talk about. It's just basic presentation things, right? The point of a bullet list is to let people know what to expect in the subsequent talk before you start, so they contextualize the whole thing in terms of the structure of your entire talk. Doing this one at a time where you reveal the next one as you talk about it is dumb, because it means that people get lost and have no idea what to expect next. It's like, it's just the basic things, right? Like, this isn't even a science thing. This is a basic communication thing. How do you talk to people, Kent? Not like this.
Man created God. Isn't that what the evolution theory would teach? There is no God. Man created him.
No, that isn't what evolution teaches. I'm taking another drink. My goodness. Evolution doesn't say anything about whether or not there's a God or who created him, if anyone. It is just a theory about how biological diversity originates, persists, and in some cases, dies off. That's it. It's about biodiversity. It is a theory about the origin of diversity of life. There you go. There could be virtually an infinite number of possible God concepts that can be fit within the framework of evolution. In no way does evolution preclude there being a God. It doesn't even take a stance on it.
We need a God. And they have their whole theory of how God evolved from, worshiping rocks and stumps and trees to finally, monotheism. And, they got it all backwards, exactly backwards.
That's not biological evolution, Kent. That's anthropology and sociology. Not everything you don't like gets to go under the same umbrella. It's the same thing we saw with Jack Chick on Saturday, where basically he connected every group he didn't like, whether it be Catholics, Muslims, fascists, communists, into one big conspiracy that doesn't make a lick of sense, and these groups have really very little to do with each other, if anything. Silver Harlow says, counterpoint, the point of a bullet list is to describe the inventory of your ammunition. It's a different kind of bullet list, but yes.
I guess. Set that
people
up
say,
on Debate
couldn't
Hub.
God
You guys
use
can talk
evolution to
about
create?
that.
These two theories could not be more different. I don't see any way they could be more different. They are just exactly the opposite. Could God use evolution to create? Well,
I mean, your interpretation of both, maybe, Kent. But those are some weird interpretations of both.
Yeah, it turns out you don't have to take the Bible that literally in order to believe in God. In fact, most people...
Or misunderstand evolution as bad as
yeah.
he does.
It turns out most people both understand evolution better and opt not to take the Bible in the stupidest way possible. Of the subset of people who, accept evolution and also believe in God. I don't know
like
about
me.
most... Yeah, I don't know about most humans in existence. I'm not going to try to figure that one out.
the God that would need to use evolution is cruel, wasteful, and retarded.
Or I'll just drink for the random ableist slurs for funsies.
Well, there was a time when the word was less offensive than it is now.
Yeah, when it was actually the medical term, but that was long before this.
I argue that it's more offensive now than it was when Kent made it.
Oh, it is, but it was
significantly more now.
It was still inappropriate.
When is this? 2006?
Oh.
I think it was starting to become inappropriate around that time. I don't know. Depends on
Also, you just
what you
shouldn't
want in your society.
you just shouldn't pejoratively ascribe learning disabilities to people. Not a pejorative thing. There's no moral weight to having a learning disability. There just isn't. Many people with learning disability are
Like
are
someone
wonderful people.
trying to demonstrate that someone else has bipolar disorder, even if they don't.
In
As if
order-
that would somehow
Yeah. It's
ruin
almost
their credibility.
I wonder if someone whose name
Wouldn't-
rhymes with Bent might do that to his ex-wife in order to try to obviate the responsibility that he has as a result of, being convicted of physically abusing her.
Demonstrate how you don't understand credibility or bipolar disorder, Uncle Kent. No relation.
Yeah, in case it's not obvious, I'll just spell it out. Kent's been trying to accuse Cindy Lincoln of having bipolar disorder as if that makes physically assaulting her okay.
As if it makes her have no credibility. I believe is his argument he's
Yeah.
making.
And Rune Nordhaug, I think, says it doesn't really matter if it is offensive or not. Either way, he is clearly trying to use it offensively. Yeah, he's using it as
That's
a pejorative, right? Like he's
That's
saying this
true,
is an
he is.
insult. And the thing is, even when it was the medical term, calling someone that isn't a way that's appropriate to insult. Here's reasonable ways to insult people. Things like moral failings, like, hey Kent, you're a convicted spouse abuser. Yeah. See, there's not ever a good excuse to abuse your spouse. That's not something you were born with. That's not something you couldn't change about yourself. That's not something that's morally neutral. That's a good insult. Because one, it's true. And two, yeah, it's really gross in a moral sense. Yeah. Pointing out something about someone, even if it's unfortunate, like I do think that it is unfortunate to have learning disabilities. Probably make your life easier to not have one. But still, it's not something to be embarrassed about. It's not something that you should make some fun of someone for. It's not something you should use as an insult. Medical conditions are not something to insult people over. Yeah, there you go.
It is certainly not the God of the Bible. Think about evolution process. The God that would have to use that is cruel. Isn't it cruel to have
Right.
animals that are, partially developed and inferior and going to struggle and die? The whole evolution.
I mean, it depends on your definition of cruelty, but I mean, this is also the God who, in the same Bible, decides to have a bear maul a group of kids for making fun of a man.
Okay, so I'm confused. Kent thinks these are things that are happening to animals. Like, does he think all animals are immortal because of creation? Does he not know that animals die all the time? And if creation is true, wouldn't it have to be
no. See,
evil?
that's your fault because of sin, not God's fault.
Because of all the animals sinning,
Right.
even though they don't have the capacity to sin.
Because
Maybe they do.
once humans sinned, then it made all the animals have to die.
That's so absurd.
I agree.
That's just so absurd.
I agree.
process of struggle and death is contrary to the Christian God. Exactly the opposite. The God that would use evolution is wasteful. How many bazillions of animals had to die in order to get this thing to work, I mean, it's just a wasteful process.
Okay, so here's the thing about waste,
What?
right? What waste means is that you've taken something that could have had a use and now made it useless. Like, what's food waste? It's when you have food that could be eaten, but instead it ends up getting thrown out because you let it go bad or you just didn't want it or something like that, right? So we can talk about the moral implications of food waste, given the fact that there are people who don't have enough food to eat. And that food could be going to them, but instead it's going to just like rot on shelves or in people's pantries. Okay. But what were you going to do with those billions of years worth of organisms other than have them be in an ecosystem doing the various things that their niches demand of them? What practical use was some trilobite who died, 400 million years ago? What was it going to do for anyone? What use did it have? In fact, even today, what use does some mouse out in a field have, Kent? How do you know if its life was quote-unquote wasted? What does it even mean? How do you even define those terms? There is no way. It's just that it's a label that Kent can use because it has a negative connotation of using something up, getting uselessly having something exist and then go out of existence.
Let's say that all life on Earth exists as it is right now, and it has evolved throughout time from one common ancestor. Everything that died wouldn't have been wasteful. It would have been necessary to lead to life as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
All of it.
So if you want to talk about
if
wasting
it's being
life,
used for something, how is it wasted?
Also, if you want to talk about wasting life, how about all those animals that died during the flood that hadn't done anything wrong, Kent?
How about kids drowning on your property because it's not safe?
Yeah.
That seems like a wasted life.
But at least that one's not God's fault. Or, well, I guess you could argue that it is, given evidence, but whatever.
And it's retarded. There's no direction to it. Just things kind of, meander on the way they want to go, and there's no goal. There's no goal in mind. They're just, let
That's true. There is no goal.
Evolution has no goal.
Take a drink for that being right.
it evolve.
And it doesn't need one.
No, it does not.
There's no logical reason to think that it would. Not to use the word that he's using, but if he's meaning it in a way that it makes no sense logically, and also just being offensive, then I don't think the logic requires a goal to be necessary for evolution to be real. Why would it?
Yeah.
That is certainly not the God of the Bible. And we'll cover much more on that on video 7 in about 6 years when we get there.
I think in 6 years you'll be in prison there, Kent.
The theistic evolution. Those people trying to say God used evolution are, first place, it's not what the Bible says, okay? There's no evidence for evolution.
That's true. The Bible doesn't mention evolution. Yep. It also doesn't mention how old the Earth is.
Then you said there's no no evidence for evolution anyway. I just strongly disagree. In fact, I disagree to the point that I want to bring up the words of a young Earth creationist. Let's see if I can't bring that up pretty easily. So, oops. Gotta actually type the right letters, otherwise it doesn't work. Why aren't you doing the thing I want you to? Just being a jerk.
Alt-tab.
No, I don't think that's it. It might just
Use
be that
your
I'm using
third
the wrong
monitor.
thing. Well, I mean, I'm using the second one, I guess? I don't know. Okay, here we go. All right. This is from a short blog post. This is only like a few sentences. It's not very long. From a Todd Wood, a young Earth creationist. Todd Wood writes, evolution is not a theory in crisis. It is not teetering on the verge of collapse. These are his emphases, by the way. It has not failed as a scientific explanation. There is evidence for evolution, gobs and gobs of it. It is not just speculation or a faith choice or an assumption or a religion. It is a productive framework for lots of biological research, and it has amazing explanatory power. There is no conspiracy to hide the truth about the failure of evolution. There really has been no failure of evolution as a scientific theory. It works, and it works well. I say these things not because I'm crazy or because I've, quote, converted to evolution. I say these things because they are true. I'm motivated this morning by reading yet another clueless, well-meaning person pompously declare that evolution is a failure. People who say that are either unacquainted with the inner workings of science or unacquainted with the evidence for evolution. Technically, they could also be deluded or lying, but that seems rather uncharitable to say. Creationist students, listen to me very carefully. There is evidence for evolution, and evolution is an extremely successful scientific theory. That doesn't make it ultimately true, and it doesn't mean that there could not possibly be viable alternatives. It is my own faith choice to reject evolution because I believe the Bible reveals true information about the history of the Earth and that it is fundamentally incompatible with evolution. I am motivated to understand God's creation from what I believe to be a biblical creationist perspective. Evolution itself is not flawed or without evidence. Please don't be duped into thinking that somehow evolution itself is a failure. Please don't idolize your own ability to reason. Faith is good enough. If God said it, that should settle it. Maybe that's not enough for your scoffing professor or your non-Christian friends, but it should be enough for you. So obviously, Dr. Wood and I are going to disagree a bit on the conclusions there. But yeah, that's from Todd Wood's blog, entry titled "Truth About Evolution" from, I believe, September of 2009. And that is the entire blog post, except he later posted like an update, I think, because unsurprisingly, that became a very popular blog post of his. So, yeah, there's a reason that people believe in evolution, and like Todd Wood said, it's not because they made a personal choice to have the religion of evolution. It's because there's a lot of evidence for it, and it works very well. And like Todd Wood said, really the only reason to reject it is because of a prior faith commitment, which isn't scientific. That's not how science operates. So, until you can get better evidence, your faith commitment means nothing in science.
So why compromise a good book with a dumb theory? I don't understand why they want to do that. Okay, no evidence for it. And it is not the God of the Bible. So when I get into a discussion and people say, well, I believe God used evolution, I say, well, look, you're welcome to believe that. However, you need to understand, you're not talking about the God of the Bible.
Look, if people think it's the God of the Bible and they see that as compatible, you don't get to be in charge of them and tell them it's not. Here's a fun thing about literature. While you might be able to say objectively that an interpretation isn't the authorial intent, I don't think you can with the Bible, but necessarily in most cases, you can't really say that an interpretation that is actually justified based on the text is itself invalid. Because for the most part, what we have is the text and the reader. That's basically it for most works. Most works we don't, at least of antiquity, we don't have access to anything from the author telling us what his intent was, and that's only if you actually think that an authorial intent is the most important thing anyway. You don't have to, and I can't tell you you do have to. Which means, Kent, your interpretations aren't automatically authoritative just because they're your interpretations. Now, you might belong to a denomination or a Christian ecclesial body or a church or whatever else you want to call these organizations that has an official interpretation of various things. And they might have justifications. And by being a member, you might have reasons to both be a member and accept those, and that's fine. But what you can't do is just by fiat say, well, your interpretation doesn't count. You don't believe in the Bible. That isn't the thing you can do. And honestly, kind of a dick move to imply that you can. Because religions are internally diverse, both in terms of beliefs and practices, as well as level of devotion. Christians don't all believe the same thing, and it doesn't make them not Christians. Even though there is like a part-time job of some people to say who does and doesn't count as a Christian.
Or full-time job for some other
yeah,
non-related uncles.
yes, in some cases, anathematizing people.
In this video, identified himself religiously as a creationist and not a Christian. Because he called creation and evolution different religions. Okay, that's his religion, creationism.
I guess.
You might be talking about God like Osama bin Laden talks about God, but that's not the God of the Bible. He's got a different God than I do. Okay.
I mean, actually, by most people's estimation, not really. The Quran identifies the God of Islam as the God of the Bible. And while you might think that Islam is wrong, it definitely, throughout the entirety of its existence, has claimed to be worshiping the same God as Jews and Christians.
Almost like Kent and this other person he mentioned just have very different ideas of who this one God is.
I think this counts as a conversation that didn't happen, but that he's purporting that it did.
Maybe.
I'm going to drink for that, because I'm thirsty and
thirsty
hot.
enough to drink.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. The Mormons have a different God than I do.
Again, they don't think they do. They think they're worshiping the God of the Bible. So it becomes a problem of how different do two God concepts have to be to no longer be referring to the same entity? And I don't have a good answer for that. But it's a continuum problem, right? So like, let's say you believe in Beethoven here. You can see him, he's got glasses on, he's got a beard, got kind of longish hair. Well, now he doesn't have glasses on, but he did. Black t-shirt. Okay. But you talk to your friend and they're like, well, I believe in Beethoven too, but I don't think he wears glasses, and I'm pretty sure he always wears a red t-shirt. Well, okay, they're wrong about that, but does that mean they don't believe in the same Beethoven that you do? I don't know. I don't think so. They say a lot of the other same stuff, like, oh, he's on Kent with Bent on Tuesdays, and he made the music for the Dapper Dino channel intro and outro, stuff like that. I don't know how much you have to get wrong about Beethoven before I can say that you don't actually believe in the real Beethoven. Similarly, I don't know how different two God concepts have to be before you can reasonably say that they don't refer to the same God. I don't think you have to be the same in every little detail. But like I said, it's a continuum problem, and I don't know where to draw the line. But I will say this. If you believe in the stories of the Old Testament, as Christians would call it, or the Tanakh, and you believe that the God you worship did those things, then you probably conceive of yourself as worshiping the same God as that God. And if you believe in not only the various prophets and figures from the Tanakh, but also in, say, Jesus, like Muslims do, then I think it's reasonable to say that you're probably at least trying to worship the same God as the Christians. Maybe that's too open-minded and accepting of. I don't know. I also don't really think it matters, but whatever.
Just because somebody says the word God does not mean they're talking about the same person that is the God of the Bible. So, no, God did not use evolution to
By the
create.
God of the Bible, you mean the God of the Bible that Kent thinks has to be his exact interpretation of it.
Right. Kent has a very narrow conception of what concepts count as the God of the Bible.
I don't think I believe in the same God of the Bible as Kent does, per Kent's line of reasoning. I mean, that's just my best guess. Like, if he knows about me or, would evaluate me, I would think that he would think I believe in a different God, not the God of the Bible.
Because when pressed on whether or not acceptance of evolution and the young age of the Earth and whatnot are salvation issues, Kent generally says no. But here he's saying that, but if you believe in theistic evolution, you have a different God. And if I understand his version of Christian theology well, you have to believe in the right God and also accept the sacrifice of the right Jesus in order to be saved. So I think here he's betraying that he does actually think it's a salvation issue according to his own criteria. Or at least he's internally inconsistent.
There's no evidence for evolution anyway. Okay. Cover much more on that on video number 7. Psalm chapter 8. Yeah, I love this psalm.
We're going to take a drink for Psalm chapter 8. It's Psalm 8. The book of Psalms is a collection of 150 or 151 if you have a longer version. Psalms, each of which is a psalm. The book of Psalms doesn't have chapters. Each psalm is its own poem, which was originally intended to be sung. So essentially, it's a book of songs. And anytime anyone says Psalms chapter with any number, all it says to me is they don't know enough about the Bible to talk about the Bible. Please never say that. Taking a drink.
Maybe you've never read the book of Revelations.
Don't do that to me while I'm drinking, man. I almost spit cider all over my keyboard. Darn it. Oh my goodness.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't.
Yes, it is. Okay, we'll continue on. That's, by the way, that counts as drinking for a stupid thing. Coffee breath for $1.99 says AIG, BOD, poop, turd. Yeah, we'll take a drink. I know what BOD means.
What does it mean? Why don't you explain for the audience?
No, they can figure it out.
Okay.
The whole psalm is amazing. David said, when I consider thy heavens. Now keep in mind, David spent his early life doing what? What was David as a kid?
First he was a shepherd, and then he was basically the court jester. Not in terms of funny man stuff, but, he was the court entertainer.
Shepherd.
Oh, hey, I got it right.
You get a lot of time to lay out there and consider the heavens. Lots of time. You figure, you go to bed, you go to sleep probably, 10 o'clock or so, 11 o'clock.
Sheep, but...
Yeah. Also, I don't know about 10 or 11 o'clock. Seems like you'd probably just go to sleep not long after sundown, but what do I know? I'm not a shepherd. I've never been a shepherd. Certainly not like an
Well, if
Iron
they
Age shepherd.
had, no, how strictly they were keeping time 4,000 years ago.
Right, Steven said, if you had 3 PhDs clogging your mind, maybe you'd make a minor mistake. I don't. I still make minor mistakes, but not ones that are as dumb as that one. Look, if the Bible's your favorite book, get it right. If the Bible is your source for your worldview, get it right. Not even just basic things. Like, who does the Bible say wrote the books of Timothy? How do you cite a psalm? What's the name of that last book in the Bible?
There are certain things you should know, and like certain things that don't matter as much. Like, so what? You've memorized the distance in astronomical units to the planets from the sun. You can't get certain things off the Bible right that are basic, but you also can't even identify what a skeleton, if it were a dinosaur or not.
Yeah. And
you
now,
call yourself Dr. Dino for decades before this question ever even was proposed to you, I guess.
and here's the thing. If you're just some guy who doesn't purport to be a pastor or an expert on science and the Bible, then I don't really care if you know what a dinosaur is or if you can't properly cite the Bible. Because whatever, man. You're not pretending to be an expert on it. Kent is.
Yeah.
Right? Kent is. That's why I call him out on it. If anyone in this had done this, my reaction would not be as harsh. Because none of you guys are, unless I'm wrong about all of you, are purporting to be experts on the Bible. Kent is.
Lock or whatever. Well, it gets dark way before that. So you get all the sheep in the pasture, you lay down to block the gate, so the wolf doesn't come in and the sheep.
That's not how you do gates, Kent. You don't just lay down in front of the gate. You latch it. Because wolves don't know how latches work. And then you hope your fence is high enough, but that it's not broken. Don't lay in front of the gate. That's dumb. Taking a drink for Kent, not knowing anything about shepherds, apparently, except that they have pastures, which I guess is true. I said pastors. I meant pastures. Sorry about that.
Don't go out. And now you got 4 or 5 hours to sit there and practice your harp or whatever you're going to do, or you can't read a book unless you got a candle, and you consider the heavens. If anybody knew how to consider the heavens, it'd be David.
No, it would probably be like the court astronomers, which at the time were probably court astrologers, because they were actually, in charge of doing things like keeping the calendar and knowing when the seasons change, which is important in an agricultural or pastoralist society. Because, you screw up things like harvest times or when to move flocks to different pastures for different times of year, people starve. Like, it's a life or death thing to get the stars right. So.
This is something we have lost in our culture. We are so busy being entertained by all of our electronic gizmos, radio, TV, computers, etc. We have lost this, taking time to consider the heavens.
I actually kind of sort of agree. I have to actually intentionally take time to go look at astronomical events like the recent eclipse, or there was a meteor shower that unfortunately I missed last night because I tried to go look at it, but that cluster headache basically made it so I just wanted to go late.
I saw it, and there were 7
Whoa.
shooting stars in about 30 minutes that I noticed.
Well, I wish I had been out there for it. And I've told the story before, but I remember very distinctly one time. I was driving between Las Cruces, New Mexico, and Phoenix, Arizona. It was very close to the Las Cruces side, and I woken up at like 3:30 in the morning, and I don't even know why, but I just did. And I decided that, you know what, I'm not just going to sit around. I'm just going to get in my truck and start driving. So I get out into the middle of the desert, and there's no city for like the next 20 or something miles, either direction. So I decided to just pull off to the side of the road and look up. Because it's some of the best stars I've ever... I'm in a desert, so there's very little atmospheric moisture that's just distorting the stars. They're very clear. It's very, very dark. Without the headlights on, like, you basically can't see your hand. Unless, of course, it's blocking out stars, in which case you can. And yeah, I decided to go look up at it. And it's still one of my fondest memories of looking at the sky. Really amazing. And I do think that there is something to be said that humans have sort of lost their general familiarity with the sky and the stars. And Well, I'm not someone who's going to be like, oh, the good old days were so much better than what we have today. No, they were the bad old days. They sucked for the most part. But there have been things that we have lost that are unfortunate, and I do think that's one of them. So you know what, Kent? I do tend to agree with you there. Silver Harlow for $2 says, AIG are a dig of backs. Ooh, I like it. I'll take a drink for that.
There was also one in Braille, but it wasn't super chatted.
Yeah, if it's not super chat, it doesn't count, man.
I remember as a kid,
I say that because otherwise you guys would kill me with alcohol poisoning. It's okay, it's partially because I do appreciate the money, but also, like, I know you guys, you would be doing nothing but causing drink triggers if you could do it for free.
it was so fun just to go lay in the yard and watch the clouds float by. Or go out at night and
I can't really do that. There's almost never any clouds around here.
Right?
just watch the stars.
Not
We camped
one.
out in the mountains once in Colorado. My uncle Kurt took us all up there, and we got the tents out there in the middle of the mountains, no place Colorado.
I too have an uncle.
But it's not Kent Hovind.
Does start with a K, but no, it's
I
not
have-
Kent because we're not related.
So if you count only blood relatives, I have 6 uncles.
I have no uncles whose names actually start with K. Wait, double check.
I don't think so. I do have 2 identical twin uncles who are named Leo and Leon, because that's not confusing at all. It's one of the few things that my grandmother ever did that I really, really, really wish she hadn't. It's named her 2 twin boys, Leo and Leon. Identical twins. It's like, come on, man. How am I supposed to figure this out as like a 5-year-old at family reunions? What the heck?
Real high elevation. And I woke up at 3 in the morning for whatever reason, and we just went out and laid on the picnic table at the campground. Here we are, 50 miles from any city. Has you ever been in a situation like that where it's just stars?
Why
like
does
you
Ken
can't-
think no one's ever done anything like this before?
I don't know. Maybe he just thinks his audience doesn't camp.
believe how many stars there are? We saw 100 shooting stars per hour.
No, you didn't. We already checked on this. That's way more than the highest rate of shooting stars ever recorded on Earth. I'm just going to take a drink for Kent's lie.
About,
And pouring a new drink.
no, I'm sorry. It was 300 shooting stars we saw in 1 hour
Oh my goodness.
laying out there.
Now I have to pause so I can pour this and take a drink before I continue on. Kent,
You should pour the drink directly into your mouth. You
if
pretty much have to now.
if you're gonna just make up a story, because I'm drinking not only for how stupid that lie is, but also now for stories that just didn't happen. It's 2 drinks. You're gonna make this stuff up. At least come up with numbers that are reasonable. Like what is the rate of that? So like, let's see. So we got 300 divided by 6. So that's 5 a minute. There is no. That's almost like once every 10 seconds. There are no meteor storms that intense, Kent, no matter how far out into the sticks you are. So here's 2 drinks. There's one. There's the other, Kent. My goodness. Just dude, make your lies at least halfway believable. Come on.
My brother and I. It was just incredible. All of us. I don't know if it was.
Oh, I wonder if that's the brother whose son later on told Kent that he was an idiot about all of his tax stuff, and that not only was he wrong and likely tempting prison, which did happen, but also it made him seem less credible. I wonder if it was the same brother had that kid.
Maybe not. Maybe.
Oh, Icarus for €2 does in fact tweet super chat. That's the thing. The Braille, which I'm going to. You know what? I'm going to double check. I'm going to copy it.
Yeah, it's just straight up AAG
Oh, did you already
is
check
a
it?
bag of you know what.
You already check it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice. All right, we'll drink more. Because I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I don't read Braille. Maybe I should, but I don't.
Why wouldn't you?
I don't know. It just hasn't ever really come up. Because I do know a little bit of sign language, so I can do some basic communication with deaf people. That's American Sign Language, by the way. But like,
Okay.
when do I have to like write to someone in Braille? If someone's like blind, I can just talk to them. It doesn't
No,
like.
it's fine. I get it. You hate blind people for no reason. No, that's fine. It's not fine, actually. Don't do that. Gosh, Stafford.
Expense.
You're welcome.
But yeah, it's one of those things where like knowing knowing a little bit of sign language does help, right? Because every once in a while I come across deaf people, including family members. But like I've never really come into a situation where knowing Braille would have helped me. I
can think of one. It's right there on the screen.
Okay, for the first time, I've come into a situation where Braille would help.
I can't really feel it though.
Here we go.
I was probably 12 at the time, so I don't remember what month it was. There are 2 times a year when the Earth goes through a band of broken up fragments where you get meteor showers. You know, it's September and August and September, I believe, or twice we go through this band. So it might have been then. I don't know. We saw a bunch of them that night. But he said, when I consider thy heavens. We don't take time to stop and think. We're too busy being entertained. This is why kids are not developing the depth of character and understanding that they should and that they used to in the old.
Here it is. If you stare at the sky, you'll be a more moral person than if you play video games. I can't look. As much as I'm like, yes, people should go out and appreciate nature, including the night sky, you'd have more depth of character if you stopped entertainment and watched the sky is a citation needed time if I ever saw one. Like, you can't just say, well, obviously you can say these things apparently, but no one should take you seriously if you just assert these things. Like, oh, people are more immoral for spending less time looking at the sky at night. How? Why? I think this one is actually kind of making me angry. Like, some of the times I'm just exasperated by how stupid Kent is. This one I'm starting to get angry at him. Like, come on, man. You know what? We're just going to hit play.
Olden days. Psalm 39, the psalmist said, while I was...
Oh, you got it right that time. Psalm 39. Thanks, Kent. Not Psalm chapter 39.
Using...
Nathaniel Great for $2 says, yay for, I think it's Noia, which I'm not really sure what that means. But I'm going to take a drink for the Mothra emoji.
The fire burned. The word muse means to think.
Mm-hmm.
When you stop and think, he said, while I was musing, while I was thinking, the fire burned. And some people, they get this burning in their heart, like, man, I just want to do something for God, because if you take time to meditate, think, just take the time, shut off the TV, shut off the distractions, get away from everybody, and go think. The Jews, as they march up to Jerusalem once a year or twice a year, all the males of the city would be marching together up there to the city, and they would sing the Psalms. And there's a word they would say in there. Anybody know what that word is, which means stop and think?
Oh, is he going to say it's Selah, which is all over the Psalms, but no one actually knows what it means?
Selah.
Taking a drink for confirmed prediction.
Nice.
The reason it's untranslated in modern Bibles is because no one knows what it means. And I have no idea if people on pilgrimage to Jerusalem used to sing the entire Psalter. I really don't know. I do know of groups that sing the entire Psalter on, like, repeat now. But it's not that group, so, like, I don't know. Oh, it's fear of younger generations is what Juvenoia means. Okay. Vsauce did a video on it. Yeah, that seems like it's one of the oldest, like, historical biases to ever exist. That one. I think, we even have, like, an ancient Sumerian clay tablet that's a letter from a father to his son about how the new generation is horrible and they don't respect their elders and they can't speak properly. Yeah, it's a pretty old thing. But you know what? I feel like overall, while there are some problems, you know, humanity's not doing that badly. In fact, even with things like, you know, climate change, we've actually made some strides, and it's no longer an automatic doomsday scenario. So, not that means we should slacken up in efforts to continue to mitigate it, because then it will become an automatic doomsday scenario. But, like, there's actually been forward progress, and while, yes, it is going to continue, and there are going to be problems as a result, I think we're at the point now where end of civilization is no longer the real.
Stop and think. They'd be walking along the whole village, you know, 40, 50, 80, 100, 200 people walking up, toward Jerusalem. And you have to go up to get to Jerusalem, no matter which way you come from, because it's up on a hill. You know, it's always going up to Jerusalem.
That's true. Take a drink. Jerusalem is in fact built on an island.
They would say, "Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised, Selah," and they would all stop.
Yeah, this is another one of those. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible, right? Like, maybe that is what happened. But there's no reason to think it did.
And think about it. That's what it means. Stop and think.
Actually, it's more likely an indication to, in fact, pause, but to pause for a musical notation, like a rest. Which reminds me of my least favorite meme, which is the musical notation with rests that just become like smaller and smaller divisions of the entire bar. And it's called anxiety. It's silence, but it keeps getting faster. And oh my goodness, do I hate it! If you don't know what I'm talking about,
I love that meme.
if you can read music at all, feel free to look up anxiety. It's silence, but it keeps going faster. It legitimately makes me uncomfortable to look at. I'm like, no, I hate it. Stop.
It gives me good anxiety. I like it.
Great is the Lord. Stop and think. We just don't do that. I encourage people to just stop and think. Sometimes I'll be praying and I'll say, "Heavenly Father," and just stop right there. Don't say another word.
Is he having like these little tiny seizures or something?
You know, that might explain a lot about Kent. My goodness.
About who you are talking to. Do you have any clue who this is? We're talking about the God of the universe, you know.
Oh.
And we expect him to come like a puppy dog when we call. You know, "Hey God, I'm ready to pray. Get over here. Listen to me right now. Get over here. Stand right here. I'm praying, okay?"
I mean, if you're omnipresent, you don't really have to get God to go anywhere. He's right there. That's kind of the point of being omnipresent. But you know what? It's about time to wrap this up. I think we are just almost at the 2-hour mark. We're going to go a little bit over, but we're going to do some quick announcements, and we're going to get out of here. And I will see you guys hopefully on Thursday. So first, Bent, do you have anything that you want to plug?
No.
Okay. So tomorrow, Wednesday, 1st of June, Power Rangers Jungle Beasts on Top Hats Off, my off-topic channel. We do a actual play of the Power Rangers RPG by Renegade Games, the officially licensed Power Rangers RPG. There are currently 2 episodes as well as 1 short that you can watch. I think it comes out to like 4.5-ish hours or something like that. So if you want to catch up, there's that. That involves me. It has Maddie from Science Side Up, who plays our Blue Ranger, as TD Lane as our White Ranger, although he won't be there with us tomorrow, but that's okay. Also, Smitty, who I think might be in the chat, is our Red Ranger, and then there's a couple other people who you probably don't know because they aren't really regulars on YouTube. So that will be at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, and if you live in outside of those time zones, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to do some math. Thursday, the 2nd, is going to be the Jewish Matt Powell final part 3. It's at least as stupid as the other parts. This is about Yosef Mizrahi, a pretend rabbi who is extremely dumb. Let's see. On Saturday, the 4th, I don't know. Something will probably happen. I honestly don't know. On Tuesday, the 7th, we're going to do Kent with Bent 84. Then, my plan is on the 9th. Sorry, on the 8th, we're going to do Guns, Magic, and Steel. That's a D&D game over on Cheshire Vic's channel, featuring me, featuring Bent Hovind, Cheshire Vic, obviously, Maddie from Science Side Up, and I don't think she'll be there today. That time, nor is Erica, but also features her fiance Luke, who I also don't think will probably be there that week. But also, TD Lane is there. Again, I don't know if he'll be there. There's a lot of busyness around end of semester and other life event things going on, so it's a little bit tricky.
No one's going to be there, but it'll be great.
Yeah. Let's see. Then on the... Okay, so that's the 8th. I already talked about the 9th. Oh, the 9th. The 9th should be a single standalone show called The Gentile Matt Powell. Never guess who it is.
I'm not going to guess.
He's definitely a Gentile.
I don't want to spoil it for the chat.
If you want to watch it just now, just join the channel or join the Patreon, and it's available to you.
Huh?
So that's on the 11th. I don't know of anything in particular that's happening. The 14th, though, is either going to be a Matt with Maddie or a Kent with Bent with Maddie from Science Side Up. It's also going to be my birthday celebration. I'm thinking about doing extra stuff beyond Kent with Bent or Bent with Maddie on that day on the channel. I just don't know what yet. So if you have suggestions, put it in the comments or, you know, something like that. So like, what would you like to see on the channel for a Dapper's birthday kind of thing? Last time, I think I streamed for like 6 hours or something about various things, and it was split up into like 3 individual streams. Let's see. The 15th should be Power Rangers again. And that's as far ahead as I'm going to look. So you guys now are getting like 2.5 weeks worth of look into the future. Again, that's if you're watching this on the 31st of May, 2022. If you're watching this in the future, then hello from the past. I hope you do not judge us too harshly for our strange and antiquated ways.
I don't care if you judge me.
All right. With that, guys, I'm going to leave you with the outro, which is basically a thank you to my patrons and channel members, as well as an invitation to yourself to help support the channel. Again, only if you can afford it. If you can't, please just keep that money to yourself. Use it to survive. I am not here to make anyone's life more miserable. However, I will accept thank yous. Oh, and for $20, Arachamian, right before we go, says there's a Unicode symbol for musical rests all the way down to 128th rest. But YouTube won't let me copy paste it here. And then he gives the Unicode. My goodness, if someone actually copy pasted like the equivalent of the anxiety musical piece into chat, I don't know. I would feel very uncomfortable. It legitimately makes me uncomfortable. I hate that picture, but I also love it for the fact that it has such a weird effect on me, even though it really shouldn't, like objectively. It literally means nothing. The Discord server for channel members and patrons, because we are going to watch some Power Rangers after this, because you know what? You don't have to pay too much attention to it, and it's funny. Oh, also Icarus says, what's happy birthday in Klingon? It is Oshlich Dativjudge. That's small q OSDATBIJ. Oh, fine, I'll type it. You guys get to hear clickety clackety.
You can keep saying
Happy birthday.
He's typing. I meant chat. Check for typos.
Well, they probably will too. Anyway, here we go. We're gonna get out of here. Bye, guys. Before you go, I want to take a minute to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or more. Work in Progress, Benthoven, Cynically Skeptic, Denny5252, Ian Chen, John Ackerman, Landon Knoll, Iapetus, Mabbity Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, Star Runner, and The Venerable Bean. Without my channel members and patrons, this channel simply wouldn't exist as it does now. You certainly wouldn't be getting up to 3 videos a week. You'd be lucky to get 1. So, if you're interested and you can afford it, check out my Patreon link in the description below, or the Join the Channel button. Both of them get you access to the special patron and member-only Discord server, where I like to hang out. And at higher tiers, you can also get access to other things like your names in this credit, video requests, and more. No matter how much you pledge, you always get early access to my videos, and as of the time of this recording, that's about 10 different videos that you could have access to. If a monthly pledge isn't right for you, there are always other ways to support the channel. I have a merch store linked in the description. There's also an Amazon wishlist link there. And if none of that's right for you, and you just want to support the channel without spending any money, just liking these videos, commenting, and sharing them on social media goes a long way.